Good evening. You're listening to Adrenaline Radio. This is Fred Blanchard, your host of Adrenaline Motorsports. You mentioned Kugel and a Roadster. Was there anything else that you got involved with besides the Roadster? I mean, you said you were helping out people, and what I know that I'll just tell you right up front. Your reputation precedes you, so I wanted to talk about the Firebird. Is really what I wanted to talk about.
I figured we were going to get to that. Yeah, Jerry and I had been talking, and the Roadster had been run for quite a few years, and we wanted another goal. And at this point in time, nobody had been 300 miles an hour in a full-bodied car. There were several people that tried, and nobody had been successful yet. And I felt that that between the two of us, we could accomplish this goal. So we set about to. We were originally going to build a car, but it just so happened that a team from the San Francisco area was selling their car, and it was a very nice Firebird, 1992 Pontiac Firebird. And we went up and looked at it, and we purchased the car. And we spent about a year getting it ready to run at Bonneville with a turbocharged small block in it.
What kind of preparation, Mike, did you feel at that time that you had to make in order to try to move forward toward the goal you wanted to set on this deal?
Well, one of the things you have to have is the correct gearing. The car has to be geared for the engine speed that you're going to run to be able to go the speed in miles per hour that you think you're going to try to accomplish. And you can overdo it or underdo it if you're not careful. So that was one of the things that we spent time with. We added weight to the car because in the class that we were running in, aerodynamic enhancements aren't allowed. So you had to run stock factory bodywork. And this vehicle is a very stable platform, but 300 miles an hour is very fast for anything.
Where did you find these particular parts? As you said, you don't go to the local parts house and say, I need a gear to run 300 miles an hour.
You're right. And the gear set was a specially made gear set that we acquired. One of our competitors actually had attempted this same thing a few years before we did. And he had some gears made, and we managed to get them from him.
Welcome back. You're listening to Adrenaline Radio. I'm Fred Blanchard, host of Adrenaline Motorsports. We have an in-studio guest, Mike Lefevers, and he was telling us about his building of a land speed car, a Pontiac Firebird, and the various components that was being accumulated to install in this vehicle. Mike, continue on. You said something about preparing the car aerodynamically.
Yeah, we cheated. We used weight. Yeah, you can only, in the classes that we race in, you've got to run the stock bodywork. And everything has a point, if it goes fast enough, that it'll create lift. And while the Firebird is a really stable platform, the car still would create lift, and at a certain speed it would get off the ground or it would lose traction, and so you have to take that into account and add weight to it in this case, and that was how we solved the problem for ourselves. And the car ended up weighing about 5,200 pounds.
Well, how did you make the decision on the type of motor that you were going to run? Where did that come from?
Well, we knew it was going to be a turbocharged engine, and we talked about doing a big block. It would have been a little easier to make the power required with a big block, but getting everything in that car packaging-wise is difficult. So we decided to do it with a small block. So we built a 368 cubic inch twin turbocharged small block that was charge air cooled with ice water, and the initial package that we went up with had about 1,260 horsepower, and the very first time we ran it, which was in 1997, we managed to set a record with the car right off the trailer. It went 200. The record that we were running on was 215 miles an hour, and we ran 265 miles an hour.
Well, that made somebody unhappy.
It made us happy, though.
I know. You were very pleased. I could see that. But,
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was exciting at that point.
But you chose the Chevrolet platform instead of a Ford or a Chrysler product, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I know that you were partners at that time or connected with other people, but currently today you've got another project going here, and let's talk about your modified Roadster. That's the thing that I'd like to hear about.
Well, that's a family project, and that's all ours. And my boys have grown up around this sport, and they would always go to the races with me. A good example was we were at Laguna Seca one time, and Judy and the boys are up there, and we were up there road racing a car, and a customer's car. And, so they've been to all the racetracks and seen all the stuff that we have to go through to perform in that environment. But the Salt Flats, again, turned into a family deal, and my wife and my boys just love to go. And so we built a modified Roadster in 2008. And my youngest is currently the driver of the car, Kevin. But we're reconfiguring the car right now for my older son, Ryan, to fit. He's like 6'3", and it's really difficult to get a car that will fit somebody that tall. So we're making some modifications to the car right now, so he'll be able to fit this year.
Well, how did you decide on a modified Roadster? There's so many different cars in different classes to run in. And I know I've seen so many varied vehicles there that one is totally different than another, but they're all running for the same end result. They want to get that hat. So kind of fill us in on that, Mike.
Well, that's exactly what it amounted to. There's something different. It was something I hadn't done. I had run Corvettes and Studebakers and Firebirds. I've been involved in lots of different types of cars up there, but I'd never done a Roadster of any sort. And this was a ground-up project. So as an engine builder, I knew the engines, I knew the transmissions, I knew the rear ends and such, but I'd never built a car from nothing. And when you start to build something like that, you went and you bought a fiberglass replica body, but the rest of the car doesn't exist. So every tube, every rail that you build, every bracket that you make is there for a reason, and it was a new experience for me.
Now, another thing I noticed that this time you didn't run a Chevrolet. You were running a different engine. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, at Bonneville, everything is horsepower. It's one of the few racing arenas where horsepower is the absolute most important thing. Top Fuel drag racing, I'll give it as an example. They take power out of the engines to go faster sometimes, and they'll put slippage in the clutch to get it down the racetrack. So those are things that you have to do. At Bonneville, it's all horsepower. And I chose an engine package that's somewhat unique, but it was what I felt the most powerful engine package available at the time, and it was what's called a Dodge R5 P7, which that's the slang, if you will. It's really a NASCAR type engine package from stock car racing. So that's what we are using, and that's what the kids are learning how to drive, and it will also be turbocharged eventually. Currently it just has a carburetor on it, and that's what the boys are learning how to drive with.
So you had the opportunity to find out from NASCAR, was it, or through those sources that run Dodges, Fords, and Chevys, and this was basically the motor that you felt would produce the most for what it was?
That's correct. For the dollars invested, the performance potential was higher than all the others, and just simply because we could even make the engine bigger than the other manufacturers, the Ford and the Chevrolet, and we can eventually get this engine into the 450 cubic inch range without any problem.